You're listening to the Starboard. It's your Dockmaster Michael Atilano, and my guest for this episode has his own radio show. He's been a producer for several years, runs two different radio stations, and has a new show that's airing on Pacific Coast FM, which is also syndicated worldwide. It's called All About the 80s. Welcome to the show, Robert Charles.
I appreciate you, man. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about your beginnings in radio. I know that you come from a prolific period of broadcasting.
Okay, so I think I was about 16 years old when I first got the bug to be, the itch to be in radio. I did an internship in a little town in North Arkansas called Mountain Home, Arkansas.
What year was that, by the way?
85. It was a country station. I think the statute of limitations is over, but I really wasn't supposed to be in there because I was like 15 years old, 16 years old, and the owner didn't know I was there. But I'd sit in with the night DJ. I would do everything everything on the show except talk because obviously he didn't want him to know I was there. So I did that for the summer of 85, and then in the summer of 86, that same station changed formats and went to adult contemporary, and I actually got a job through the ownership and got paid to be on late nights. So I did that the summer of 86. And it seemed like I was just kind of doing this for the summers. And it was around Christmas of 86, I wanted to get into it and be in it, like, period. This is it. This is what I want to do. So I got with the number one station in that market. They're a little AM station. They're still on the air today. They're KTLO, 1240 AM in Mountain Home, Arkansas. And I started on January 1st, 1987. It was a country station. I stayed with them and a couple other stations there for the next, the next 7 years, 6 or 7 years. Radio back in the 80s didn't really pay a whole lot. So I kind of like had two jobs going at one time. So I had to quit one of them because I didn't have time for both of them. So Walmart was where I was employed. So I kind of had to go to Walmart and let the radio go aside. But the funny thing is the itch for the radio never left, because I would find myself in the car, or in the truck playing DJ while I'm driving, talking out of the outros into the intros on the next song just to stay refreshed and stay up on it. So in 2015, there's a platform called Spreaker, and there was I don't even know how I came up on it, but I was listening to a radio station on there, and I told they had a chat room. I was like, yeah, I used to do this back then, blah 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 blah. Well, they got a hold of me on Facebook, and it was like, hey, you want to get your own show, and we bring you back. So in 2015 is when I came into internet radio. So I took a brief period off there for about a year or so in 2019-ish. But for the last 7 years, I've been back in internet radio. And like you said earlier, 6 months ago, I got back into this. And I'm like, if you would have told me 6 months ago, hey, Rob, in August, you're going to be in 200 countries. You're going to have 3 radio shows that are syndicated worldwide, and you're going to be managing 2 radio stations. I would have asked you what were you smoking, because I would have never thought that what's going on today is what be happening. Man, I'm loving what I'm doing.
Can you tell me about some of the artists that you were playing on your station back in 86 and 85?
Okay, so back in 85, 86, I mean, and that carries over to my All About the 80s show that I have. Duran Duran was playing, USA for Africa, Michael Jackson, all those kind of folks, the Outfield, all those great artists. To me, I think the 80s is the best genre of music ever. I love classic rock. I love country and classic country, but overall, I think 80s is my favorite.
That's very interesting. Your show takes a lot of different turns and plays commercials that I haven't even heard in decades. Those Taco Bell commercials, Del Taco, and some of the different things. The double cheeseburger, burger, please. And I mean, you really cover the gamut. It's almost like you're listening to 80s radio.
Well, and to me, that is what makes my show different. I mean, there's 100 million 80s shows out there. But the thing that I think makes my show different is the fact, okay, so I did live the 80s, and those nostalgic commercials are a big part of it. I've done a lot of research, and I've got a folder right now with probably 400 more commercials that I just got to get in Audacity and chop them up and edit them. And I mean, I could probably have 600 or 700 commercials. I've got 120 that I have in rotation right now that I use on the show.
You know what would be pretty crazy is if those actual advertisers say, "Hey, you know what? We're going to sponsor your show."
Dude, that'd be so awesome, man. I mean, I got McDonald's, I got Burger King, and you know what's funny? I mean, I have a little bit of everything. I have car commercials, I have some local commercials out of New Orleans, I've got some in New York. You know, then you got your food and your beer and your sodas. It's no wonder when my show's over, I'm hunkering to eat because I'm getting Godfather pizza commercials and Burger Chef and Del Taco, and then I'm gonna go eat a peanut butter sandwich or something.
Well, the funny thing is, you realize when you hear those commercials and you realize that not only have they changed their advertising and their marketing, but they've taken a lot of those things off the menu. Like when you hear the enchilada from Taco Bell or some of these different Pizza Hut products that they were advertising at the time, they don't serve those things anymore. It almost makes you want to go back into that moment and say, "Hey, I want to go and get myself an enchilada, or I want to get myself that personal pan pizza." That those things that they don't exist anymore. So in a weird way, it's more than nostalgic because it makes you want those things. And so your show touches on a lot of different senses that I don't think a lot of people realize until they actually hear your show.
Well, I try to give you the full 80s experience. I want it, besides me saying, okay, you know, this was big in 1984 or whatever. If you listen to my show, I want you to feel that it is a recording from 1984 or 1986 or whatever. I mean, earlier when I did the show, I've been doing the show 6 or 7 months now. At the time, I was doing 3 hour shows. So 1 hour, I would do all 88. Next hour, I do all 85. And I, pick a different year of the 80s and feature that year for the whole hour. Obviously, I could only do that 3.5 times because you only got 10 years and 3 shows. So I want the audience to feel, they can just sit back, just chill out, and feel that this is what was big in 1985 or so. Of the 3 shows that I do the 80s, I do an all genre show, which is pretty much a mashup of whatever. I'll play current, I'll play rock, whatever, as long as it's clean. The show is on FM station, so I do abide by the FCC rules. And then I have a show that's all independent country and rock and pop. Of all the 3 shows, the one I love every single one of them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm partial to all of them, but because I lived the 80s and it's so many people are like, man, I'd love to go back to like 1983 or whatever. That is why I like the 80s show the best, because I mean, I put a lot of effort into that.
I think the 80s, for me personally, too, not only was I growing up in that time, but it was such a threshold manifest of music from 1980 to 1990. And you could argue even into the 90s, into the 2000s. I feel like now the music's just not as, it doesn't touch the same way because back in the 80s, you had only a certain amount of mediums to get them from, and you only had a certain amount of people that produced the music. So 1980 was different than 1981, and 81 was different than 82, and so on and so forth.
The show is very versatile in the fact, and I've mentioned on the show before, like you were just saying, the difference in the styles of music. Like in 1980, you still got the disco carryover from the 70s and the Kool and Gangs type sound. And then towards the middle of the 80s, you started getting more of the poppy, Duran Duran, and you started getting, more Michael Jackson. And towards the end of the 80s, you had the hair bands, and towards the middle and end of the 80s, it's just, to me, it is the most versatile 10-year span that I think has ever existed. I mean, you're going to have Rick James in 1980, and then in 1989, you've got like Love and Rockets and, Sinead O'Connor, that kind of stuff. It's so different, and everything in between. The folks definitely, they need to check the show out.
And also too, if you look at those same artists, such as Rick James in 1980, by 1989, he was completely different. I think it was in 1990 when he got arrested in Hollywood for that situation with the crack. I think that was the year he got arrested. He lived definitely a decadent lifestyle. If you look at 86, Rick James, when he performed at Farm Aid, I mean, he was still really popular, but you got to remember, he went from 1980 to his biggest album in 1981, Street Songs, and then he produced the Mary
Hmm.
Jane Girls. And then after that, he produced Party All the Time by Eddie Murphy.
That's what I was fixing to say. I mean, he was real big on producing and actually had a little cameo in that song.
Exactly. And so I don't know if you know, but Rick James accused Prince of stealing his sound.
Really?
Yeah, he took Prince on tour with him in 1980, and Rick James was all the rage back in 80, 81. And I know people pair up Rick James and Tina Marie and consider Tina Marie to be his prodigy, but Tina Marie was her own animal. Tina Marie did not need Rick James. She actually was
Right.
produced her own music. So anyway, they did a
Exactly.
tour and they brought Prince on tour, and it turns out that the fans liked Prince more than they liked Rick James. And if you listen to the music of Prince in 1981 from the album Controversy or some of those albums, you do hear some of the similarities with organs and with the synthesizers. And basically, he outdid Rick James in his own
At his
on
own
his own
game.
playing field.
Well, there's a lot of bands that, and this is weird, but like, okay, so when Prince was big in the early to mid 80s, was not a Prince fan whatsoever. I mean, I liked, Purple Rain, blah, blah, blah. But, when I got older, I'm going to be 53 here in October. So the older I get, the more I appreciate some of that music. Right now, I mean, I'm telling you right now, of all the musical artists that have passed away, Prince has hit me hard. I mean, I became a big Prince fan after the fact. In the mid to late 90s is when I really got into them. I had on my show last week, I mentioned, Olivia Newton-John passed away. She was another one. I mean, there's only been two artists that I can really think of that has really affected me. I was an Olivia fan back in early 80s, listening to, Let Me Be There and If You Love Me, Let Me Know, and all those songs from the 70s. But touching back on Prince, he was a musical genius. I mean, I honestly believe Prince is a big time icon.
With Olivia Newton-John too, I think not only did she touch you, she also touched myself and everybody else, the entire music industry. At least with her, it wasn't a big shocker. Whereas Prince, it was, because Prince was young and
Right.
no one knew Prince was addicted to those opioids. Where Olivia, we knew she had cancer. Anytime someone dies and passes away, it's always shocking, it's always sad. However, Olivia Newton-John was the biggest superstar arguably between 1977 to 1984. She might have even been bigger outside of that, even previously in Australia and stuff like that. But one of the first 45s I ever had was Physical and
1984,
1981.
81.
See, and here's the thing too. At that age, I'm 6 years old. I didn't realize all the production qualities that they put into that production. You have Steve Lukather on guitar, Steve Lukather from Toto, and all these
Right.
different artists that they produced to give her that big push. Same thing when she recorded Twist of Fate. That was written by Peter Beckett of Player. That was a time in the industry. And Quincy Jones is partially responsible for making artists, giving them that huge, big personnel push in the studio, where Olivia Newton-John was fine when she first recorded I Honestly Love You with her studio band of who knows who was in her personnel. I don't know off the top of my head, but by the time they get to this certain level of Hollywood celebrity, it's like you put the best with the best. And
Right.
man, it was a cash cow for a lot of those people involved. So, the 80s was a decade of decadence.
And it kept filtering in with Xanadu. She had an Electric Light Orchestra
Mhm.
working on that. I read her bio and off of Wikipedia and stuff the other day, and I'm like, I didn't realize she had all those number one and platinum albums and songs. And I'm like, I knew she was good, and I knew I loved me some Olivia, but then didn't really realize until I really started researching and reading how much she really did. But she was amazing. I mean, everything I read, all the reviews, people said she was probably one of the nicest people they ever met. I was very, very saddened at the fact that she passed away, for sure.
It's funny they billed her with Gene Kelly. They gave her a push using his name. At the same time, they brought Cliff Richard in to record Suddenly with her.
Right.
He was arguably probably one of the biggest British superstars. So what I'm saying is there was multi-level marketing in her music on so many different levels. And so by the time that what was that movie called with John
Grease.
Travolta and
Grease.
her? No, the other one, the One at a Time, or
Not Staying Alive. Right offhand, I don't.
yeah. So the one with Twist of Fate. By that time, even though that movie turned a profit, they considered it a flop considering it wasn't like Grease. So by 1984, music styles had changed drastically from 1981. By 1984, it was all about Van Halen and Prince
That's
and
right.
arguably Michael Jackson.
Oh my, yeah. That Thriller album was outrageous there in the mid '80s, and at the time, it had outsold every single album that had ever been put out up to that point, I guess.
And one of the things about Thriller too is I'm going back to that personnel aspect. You had Steve Lukather from Toto, you had Jeff Porcaro from Toto, you had Eddie Van Halen on there. That was the Quincy Jones factor of putting all these big musicians together so much. And this is my theory on Thriller. That album was so successful that it literally imploded the music industry to the point to where you could only get new wave and metal and
Right.
hip hop, because at that point you could never do another Thriller album again. It was soft rock, it was pop rock, it was soul and R&B, it was all those in a bag of chips, literally.
That album was definitely a result of great people getting together and doing great things.
Paul McCartney, I mean, shoot,
The list just goes on, dude.
Rod Temperton.
You forget about all that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? My head is full of so much information, but it's like a lot of the stuff that you're telling me now, I'm like, I knew it, but kind of like forgot it, and kind of you're kind of like bringing back memories.
Well, essentially, it's a Toto album.
It is. It is. It's a Toto and a Van Halen album.
Apparently, Steve Lukather was best friends with Eddie Van Halen. And to me, Eddie Van Halen and Prince were, you remember at the time, and that's probably why you weren't really a Prince fan, but in 84, it was like, oh, Prince sucks as a guitar player. Eddie Van Halen, eh.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I was definitely into some 1984 album with Panama. I was definitely into Van Halen. Van Halen was everywhere. It didn't matter if it was adult contemporary or top 40 or pop or whatever or rock stations. You had Van Halen playing. I mean, there was a lot of movies that was influential in the 80s also, like Ghostbusters brought out Ray Parker Jr. I never knew who Ray Parker Jr. was before that. Madonna made some movies up in the 80s. I mean, the 80s is so when I make my Facebook post every week for the show, I always make a reference, Marty McFly and the DeLorean. So I try to put little 80s snippets into my posting, just kind of like jar people's memories. Talk about the Rubik's Cube, talk about, Tang, drink, Ovaltine and stuff like that. Just the Aqua Net, just those kind of things. Kind of like, man, I remember that. I want to know what this show's about. That's why I do that. I just try to do everything I can just to let people come in for 2 hours, just kind of forget what's going on in this world nowadays, and just kind of go to a place that was much better than what I feel it is today.
You just reminded me of those times because those crazes would come in, and the Madonna craze, shoot, Boy George. I was thinking when you were mentioning those things, Marty McFly, I was thinking a few years before that, Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. Okay, so I play obviously the biggest hits of the 80s, but I kind of scrape a little bit too. I go back to songs that may not have made it to the top 10 in the 80s, but were still big. Howard Jones, No One Is to Blame. That was a big hit. I don't think the Dream Academy with Life in a Northern Town probably didn't hit number one, but I play that because I like to go back a little bit and play some of that other stuff. Boys Don't Cry. I Want to Be a Cowboy. Nobody's playing that. Nobody's playing that. Arcadia, Election Day. Nobody's playing that. A lot of people don't understand and don't realize that Arcadia was a spawn off of Duran Duran. A lot of folks don't know that. I try to bring that to the show. Like you had a band in the 80s called Sheriff, had a flop. When I'm With You flopped when it first came out. They re-released it in the late 80s. Boom, shot straight up to number one. When I'm With You, great song. A lot of folks don't know that the band Alias was derived from the band Sheriff. They defunct. They went their separate ways. 3 or 4 of the guys got together and brought together Alias. That's what I try to bring to the plate.
I'll give you a little Ray Parker Jr. background. He actually wrote the song for Leo Sayer, artist Leo Sayer, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. They ripped him off in the credits.
Really?
Yeah, so he actually wrote that song, and then I don't know who got the credit for it, but they put him on the credit as an additional guitar player. essentially he wrote the song and he got ripped off for that one.
That was a big song. He would have made even more money than he's already made. I would have been hacked off a little bit.
Nowadays, in today's times, a kid can make a video and then here they are next hosting a show because they get so many TikTok views. But back in the early days, in the 70s, back when you and I were kids or not even born yet, some of those guys were around for a long time. Kenny Loggins, by the time they got to the 80s, I mean, they were barely hitting their mark. Bon Jovi's drummer, Tico Torres, used to be in a band called Frankie and the Knockouts. And he was a soft rock drummer. And then, here they are. He goes and does this audition for Bon Jovi and gets into Bon Jovi. And, hey, grow your hair a little longer. Hey, add some hairspray. And here you are. Now you're metal.
Bon Jovi was another one. I mean, there's just so many artists that spawned up in the 80s and just kind of like carried over. I mean, John Bon Jovi and the band is still on tour today. I mean, you're looking, 35 years later, they're still rolling.
Right.
White Snake, I think White Snake is still doing some shows. Again, I could go on and on, man. It's just 80s. My head is full of 80s knowledge, man.
Well, the thing with Bon Jovi, too, is at the time when they came out, I mean, look at how metal had gotten watered down. So you could argue that Van Halen was metal with the album 1984. If you hear it, there's a lot of keyboards in there. Yeah. Bon Jovi was a little harder in 86 with their Slippery When Wet album, but they added keyboards. And if you look at the time, too, artists such as Ozzy Osbourne and Deep Purple, they started adding those keyboard sounds, too. Same with Kiss. Kiss added that keyboard layer. Now, by the time 1988 came around with Guns N' Roses, they went and brought in a new sound because they were using lower quality studio production because they paid for their recording. And then look at what that did. That changed the sound in 1988.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and then you had Mutt Lange with Def Leppard in like 87 with Hysteria, which is crazy. Did you know, and you probably do, but the average listener probably does not know that. But the album Hysteria, when it first got released here in America, it didn't sell very good at all. They went to England with it and sold like, I can't tell you how many millions of copies. Came back to America after it hit big in England, sold like 13 million copies. I was like, so it's crazy. But Mutt Lange with AC/DC and, Def Leppard and obviously Shania Twain. Mutt Lange was a big influence in the 80s also for heavy, like hair bands and heavy metal, I guess, because you could say that with AC/DC.
Also, too, one thing that was going on with that Def Leppard album was MTV. And MTV had went from playing a good mix of videos to playing the same videos over and over. I can't tell you how many times I saw Blaze of Glory, Pour Some Sugar on Me, Michael Jackson.
Is This Love by White Snake? I can't tell you how many times I've seen Tony Katane on the hood of the Jaguar, or the Rolls, or whatever it was.
Yeah, yep. And rest in peace, Tony Katane. Yeah, it's just, that was its time of decadence. And by then, some of the early 80s artists that were like Duran Duran and some of them, they had to remake themselves because Duran Duran lost some members. Like you said, they went into Arcadia. The guitar player went solo and they formed the Power Station. Him and
Robert Palmer.
Robert Palmer and the bass player from Duran Duran and the guitar player from Duran Duran. John Taylor and Andy Taylor.
And didn't he have he had like one song? It was like,
I forgot it too.
I've got it downloaded and I can't remember what it is.
It was from around the time with Living in the Box. Remember Living in the Box?
Yes.
Living in a hot cold box or whatever they say.
That's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Where can your show be found right now? Give us some of the places where people can catch your show.
Our show is on 20. I'd have to check real quick, but I think we're now, as of this week, we're on 23 different radio stations, including Pacific Coast FM. My home station that I do it live at is on Nightwave Radio. We're out of Lawton, Oklahoma. It's live on Saturday nights. And then after that, I distribute it out to all the affiliates. I've got affiliates in New Zealand, Australia, got some FM stations that carry it in Connecticut. I've got another FM station in Washington that carries it in Chihuahua, Washington, California, Birmingham, England. I mean, the list goes on as to the stations that carry it. I post every Saturday evenings that I'm live. When I go live on 3 or 4 radio stations on that night, then I got to edit it. I edit it for all the stations that are down the line. Some of them want hour segments. Some of them want them 58 minutes. Some of them want the full 2 hours. I guess I'm kind of doing a little promo for the show right now.
Absolutely. Now, how could someone listen to you live on the air on your nightwave station? How can we access that?
Okay, so if you want to listen to me live, it is Saturday nights, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. West Coast time. You can catch me on nightwaveradio.net or hightidecountry.net. You can also catch me on momediagroup.net out of Michigan and radio.jmanradio.com out of Mesa, Arizona.
And if anyone's interested in picking up your show, meaning adding it to their station, how can they contact you?
They can contact me at my email, which is drvr5x@yahoo.com, and just drop me a line. And if you're interested, we can work something out, just like I did with Michael. I'm very humbled by the response. For the longest time, I pushed my indie show because there's a lot of independent radio stations out there. And then I got to thinking, you know what? I'm going to see what I can do with this 80s show. And it's the fastest growing show that I have on my roster right now.
You have been listening to the Starboard. Rob, I just want to thank you for joining me today. And it's been a pleasure talking the 80s with you. You took me back into time, and we could talk 80s all day. We could probably talk for over an hour with more than that with 80s. But, it's been great talking and hearing about your show. And if anyone wants to catch Rob Charles' show, just look for the links on the Starboard in our podcast, and we will share those with you. You've been listening to the Starboard. I'm your Dockmaster, Michael Atilano.